You are now listening to the Ninth Hour Podcast.
Not even the only thing that matters when I'm talking about Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon. I don't think about America's financial situation. I don't think about anybody. I think about one thing. We cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all. That's the only thing that
Donald Trump out there wild. Be honest with you, I believe that this is the second time he's ever told the truth in the second administration. The first truth he ever told was he's not a Christian. I agree with that. The second one here is he could not care less about the poor and disenfranchised. He could not care less about the Americans' peaceful monetary system. His goal, his focus is on fulfilling the will of Benjamin Milikoski. We're talking about the Khazarian mafia who have gotten him to go and bomb this country, which was not an existential threat to America. Iran came out of their own mouth and said that they did not want. Matter of fact, it was a fatwa against having nuclear weapons. They've done anything and everything they could to prove that they'd had no quest for a nuclear weapon. And that's all he can do is feed that slop to the American people. And unfortunately, the American people are eating it up. This reminds me clearly, we say this quite often here at the Ninth Hour Podcast, of the days of old in Rome, when to stop and suppress civil unrest, they gave them bread and circus. He's clearly telling you what others have cloistered and hid, is that we don't care about you. We don't care about your monetary system. The American people will pay $10 a gallon. The American people will pay, $30 a pound for beef or vegetation and all of that. They could not care less about you. This is clearly what the man is articulating right in front of your face. And he had no shame about it whatsoever. I don't think about the American domestic financial situation. That's all I can think on. I have blinders on. I can't juggle. I can't do three things at once. The only thing I'm focusing on is that Iran does not get a nuclear bomb. That's crazy. What about Korea, North Korea? They have a nuke.
Yeah.
And you know, crazy that Kim Jong-un is sitting there right now chilling because he has a nuke. See, that's the kind of security that Iran wants. They do not want to be meddled with, so they do, I think, secretly, would like to get a nuke, not to use it, but as a sign of mutual destruction. Mm-hmm. You know, but once again, people did not sign up for this. The people who voted Trump in, voted him in on a platform of no more new wars.
Yeah, and cost cutting.
Yes, and cost cutting, absolutely. It's amazing how you can see the truth and be blinded to it, you know, because you're rooting for certain parties and you're rooting for, you know, this belief, or your church told you to vote for them. Yeah, go ahead.
There's this crazy part. He's clearly telling you he doesn't care about you, your financial situation. And you see that also not just in his words and some of his actions. You see some of the scams that Trump also is behind, even as the president of the United States.
Come on.
One thing being the Trump phone. It was promised you're going to put a $100 down payment down, and that's supposed to secure your spot at a promotional price. Come to find out, recently, all that stuff has been taken away. There is no guarantee that they're even going to make a phone, that they're even going to ship you a phone after you put a deposit down. There's no guarantee that's going to be made in America, like they've been saying all the time that it's going to happen. And so you see, he doesn't care about your financial situation. He cares about siphoning from the people in terms of what he can do for the government, for the people, and for Milikoski.
Correct. What about the Trump coin? Remember that?
Yeah.
And then followed by the Melania coin. Came out, everybody was like, yeah, the Trump coin. And as soon as it reached the plateau, he pulled the rug, sold everything, left the American people to foot the bill. And no one said anything. Oh, that's just Trump. You know, he's ingenious. I think one of the biggest scams out there is to feed poor people the hope that you may be a billionaire one day. And they go around pushing these policies that benefit billionaires, all with the hope that I'm going to be a billionaire one day. Don't tax the rich, because when I get rich, I don't want to be taxed. But right now you're living in a trailer park, and your children will live in a trailer park. You know, people of poor status, we get acclimated to living in temporary housing. Let me prove that. Apartment complexes are temporary housing.
Yeah.
You know, when you're born, some of us are born in families that live in apartment complexes. We don't even know the difference. We was, having fun in the neighborhood and all of that. And then we get to an age where we leave, and then we go get an apartment complex. Then we have children in apartment complexes. Apartment complexes are temporary living quarters. We're supposed to have homes with yards, and we're supposed to have land and acres and all of that. But we live in a system where they have gradually convinced, auto-suggested that this place of living is sufficient, and it's really not. You know, that downstairs and upstairs complex where you making moves and somebody's banging on the floor, that's not normal. Banging on the floor telling you to be quiet, stop doing this and stop doing that, your music is too loud. Apartment complexes are temporary living, but it is a place of people who are impoverished, but people get accustomed to poverty. And people like Trump, that elite class, they know it. They know it, that you've gotten acclimated to this lower form of living, and you have no aspirations of doing better. As a matter of fact, a quick way for them to off themselves, unalive themselves, is to be put in your situation. You put Donald Trump in an apartment complex with a 2003 Volkswagen, Trump will last about 3 minutes. Turn around and say, oh, hold on. Telling me I got $30 in the bank? Gas prices at $10 a gas. That is the thing that nightmares are made of for them, is not having that elitism, that financial dominance, not only finance, but also power. But today's class, we're going to get into it, into the gist of it. But before we go on, let's talk about getting that 1,000 subscribers, right? Let's talk about that. We got a small milestone that we want to reach, and that's 1,000 subscribers. So if you haven't already and you appreciate the content that has been coming out of the 9th Hour podcast, then like and subscribe so we can move past that milestone and move above. But also, we got Zoom. I don't know too many podcasts that actually have you able to call in and interact. We value your content as well. Live, absolutely. Call in as well. Call in live and give us your comments on this digital ID and living in a tyrannical state.
And I think we're at, as we stream this live, we're at 168, almost 170 subscribers. It's a new channel. We appreciate everybody likes, subscribes. Once again, we're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers to help push this channel out. All the likes, all the shares, all the subscribes, those help. And one thing that also helps is supporting our sponsor, Infinite Waters, an electrolyte hydrating mix that you add to your water or beverage of choice. And we're going to talk more about them as this podcast goes on.
The comedian George Carlin said, "It is a big club out there, and you're not in it." And that's the truth. We're not in their club. There are classes here, and we can talk about the elites. That is definitely that elite class. That is that owner's class. Then you got that master's class. That's like the plantation, the people who run it. The owner of the plantation didn't live on the plantation. He just owned it. And then there's those masters that moved around and made sure that the servant class, that domestic class, that worker class kept everything going. And that classism is still going to this day. And as you can tell by the words of Sir Donald Trump, your Lord and Master. You seen that he made a gold statue of himself? Erected it in his little estate in Florida. A golden statue of himself sitting there. And people came in with their hands on their chest. It reminded me of Nebuchadnezzar. You're going to worship this golden statue of Nebuchadnezzar. When you go to any kind of third world, and I use that loosely, but when you go to one of these tyrannical states, pictures of the leaders are all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Statues of Kim Jong-un probably littering the plains of North Korea. You go to some of these places, their leaders all over the place. They're tyrannical leader. And now to see Donald Trump now changing Washington, D.C., I heard he putting a big ballroom there and, the reflecting pond and all. I mean, we see subtle signs of tyranny, but we're going to get to some of the greater points. But once again, like George Carlin said, it is a big club out there, and the illusion is that you're in it, but you're not in it. You're not in it at all. And see, the curtains are began to blow where you can see behind the scene, where you see the elite class saying, we don't care about you.
And they like to make it seem like you're in it when it helps them. Because if we continued on that clip of Donald Trump, you would have heard him say how I think every American understands Iran can have a nuclear weapon. So he thinks that he's trying to include everybody at the same time, not include you. He's trying to make it seem like we understand. It's an important thing to me and you and everybody that Iran can have a nuclear weapon. I don't care if Iran has a nuclear weapon. I care about how much is the price of gas and diesel. That's what I care about. So they make it seem like you're in it. We need to bear this cost together. But when it comes to them reaping the rewards, it's this about me.
Right. He's following the marching orders of Mr. Milakoski. You know, that's who Iran is a threat to. And it's not an unjust threat, too. The threat is to Israel. Iran is a threat to Israel. I guess a close geographical neighbor, so to speak, in the neighborhood of the Far East. He's a threat because of their evil wanton behavior. See, you can't be in a neighborhood and do things that cause consequences. Let's say we are all living in a neighborhood, and then you dig up the street in front of your house. There's going to be some blowback from everybody else that uses that street or that Strait of Hormuz. You can't go and rob the house next to you and don't think that the neighbor next to him is not going to be upset. But they think that they can run throughout the world with impunity. They can do whatever they want without any consequence. And how do they do that? You're You're antiseptic. That's what you are. You really are. And then they label you, and then they start cutting you off. That label means that you must be deplatformed, debanked, cut off. They throw that on you, you're supposed to be through. You're supposed to bow down and say, please don't hit me with the antiseptic label. Please don't do that. Okay, I'll give in to your whims and wishes. And this is exactly what we see that our chief and leader in command here in America is doing. You know they got something on him. I mean, the way he behaved is something is on him. But I think it was Vladimir Lenin that said that there are decades where nothing happened or weeks happened, but there are weeks when decades happen. And that's what's happening upon us. Like a crescendo, things are happening faster and faster and faster because technology is involved and time is short. Anybody been listening to the series on our other platform, we are living in a finalized time, a measurable time. We're coming to the end of it. We are living in the days of tyranny. Tyranny is upon us. Now, when we specifically look at these terms, tyranny, we can really see that we really, really, really are living in a tyrannical time. If you'll give me the etymology of the term tyranny, Brother Hakam.
Tyrant. 1300s. Tyrann. Absolute ruler.
We're going to pause right there. Absolute. While you're there, I like to ruminate on these words. Let's look up the etymology of absolute. So a tyrant is one who has absolute rulership. A tyrannical government is a government that has absolute rulership. You really have no choice in it. And we, in Western society, we live under a tyrannical government. I know that they like to put out there, you can vote, and you're part of the Constitution, rules and rights that are inalienable, appeals to you. That's not the case. All of these are the illusions of inclusivity, as if you're a part of it. It's all an illusion. If they want you, they can get you, they got you. And if they don't want you and your name is in the Epstein file, they like, watch it, you didn't do anything. They choose. And when I speak about, we're talking about that hand, that unseen hand, secret societies that is ruling this whole experiment. This whole world is literally socially engineered. It's not natural whatsoever. The boundaries are not natural. The rules are not natural. It is anti-nature. It is set up by them, and they are the power figures. If you would, look up absolute.
Absolute, the adjective. Late 14th century. Unrestricted. Free from limitation.
All right. So we now see, especially here in America, but also in the UK, also out in Europe, throughout all of the UK, So we see clearly here that the government seeks. It is always that mission creep. I think it was Ronald Reagan said there's nothing more permanent than a temporary government program. And so when a temporary program come in, it never leaves. And what is an example? Federal income taxes. That's a whole nother podcast right there. But after World War II, they was like, support the government by willingly giving us this money, and people did it. One generation passed away, and another just assumed that this is what was required, and now it's permanent. By de facto, it's de facto law. You must pay these taxes. And we're going to be talking about that. Things come in for one purpose, and then it began to metastasize and creep into something else. So read absolute again.
Unrestricted, free from limitation, complete, perfect, free from imperfection.
Right. So we like to ruminate on it as free from any kind of restraints or restriction. So that restriction, so by that alone, I can see that the government is there and the people are there to check the government, to keep the government in balance. But by default, this government is seeking absolute power. And the government has gotten the advantage now. This digital state that they're in, AI surveillance, watching over each and every one of us so that they can manipulate each and every one of us so that they may achieve their high goals of absolute dominance, absolute power. It is written by a British historian, Lord Acton. Probably heard this phrase before. Power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And this is where we're at. We're already at a corrupt place and space when it comes to first world corruption in politics. We're going to do a whole podcast about how voting, how the Supreme Court has just made it, I guess, the Voting Rights Act, they amended it, took it out, the gerrymandering that they had in there that kind of excluded black folks in the South from, essentially voting. Got rid of that. That is an amazing thing. These people, with one stroke of the pen, took away all the power, took away all the people who trusted in voting's power. We've been saying this from age immemorial that voting is not a point of liberation. And so these superficial pseudo powers that they have put out there for us is now disappearing for those who trusted in it. So the illusion of inclusion is now dissipating. Trump, right there in front of you, is saying, I don't care about your financial disposition. Mm-hmm. And he's not the only one. There are many people that echo these sentiments.
And that's part of tyranny, too, is that even with this system of voting, they give this illusion like you have of freedom of choice. Mm-hmm. But if you have preset choices for the people, the populace, how free is that really? If I've already decided that you can get my right arm or you get my left arm and I'm going to smack you with it, how's that freedom?
Right.
You're going to get smacked regardless. It's not freedom. It's the illusion of choice that makes you think you're free. That's something you do with kids. You make them feel like they're choosing something by giving them these two choices that are good. I'll give you the carrot, I'll give you some celery. Which one do you want? And it makes it sound like, no, you tricked them into eating healthy. But they're tricking you into thinking that you have freedom when this is actually tyranny by having you only choose the people who are essentially going to do the same will of their masters.
Right. Great thought, right? It's either Pepsi or Coke. Which one you want? You have all the freedom. This is the land of the free. Mm-hmm. Pepsi, I want neither. Well, then you're an anti-American. You're anti-patriotic and you're antiseptic as well. I just don't want Coke. I don't want no Coke. Nah, you have to choose what they put before you, Democratic or Republican, or you can take a mixture of the both. We'll call you a centrist. But somebody coming completely free saying, I am not taking money from APEC. I believe not in this and that. You will not make any inroads in this place. They are seeking absolute authority, and they're well on their way. Solomon the Wise said it in his writings in the 16th chapter of the Wisdom of Solomon. He spoke about those who exercise tyranny will soon come to penury. And so that penury means poverty. All right, they will be broke because that despotism only can continue for a moment. after a while, the will and the spirit of humankind, they revolt. They rebel. They tend to say, hey, I would rather die on my feet than live on my knees. And so, yes, they may reign for a moment, but the human spirit will prevail over tyrannical governments at all times. Think about that. It takes people to make that work. If people galvanized right now at this moment came together, they could overthrow. I'm not inciting a riot. Don't let anybody tell you I'm doing that. I'm quoting what happened in history. People have come together under tyrannical governments, and they overthrew it. And often, though, it is replaced by the same kind of tyrants, though.
Yeah.
That's insane. So we see Trump professing the truth. Once again, he told no lies in that statement. I really don't care about the suffering. I really don't care about the gas prices, how much it is costing you to eat. Because why? It doesn't affect him, nor his people, nor people like him. The Peter Thiels, the Elon Musk, every one of them, they have no clue of what it is to suffer.
Yeah.
Or to balance a budget.
And most of them, they've never experienced that either. Trump came from, his father was the one who set up the business. And he grew up under that, under having riches and, having a successful business. So did most of these elite people who we know today. Essentially none of them were self-made millionaires or billionaires. They don't know what it is to be impoverished or to suffer whatsoever. And so they have no relation to it.
No doubt. None whatsoever. As I said before, there are separate classes. And you have that elite class, and that elite class is that hidden hand. That hidden hand, people go and call it the secret societies. They'll call it the Rothschilds. They'll call it the Vanderbilts, the Gettys, the DuPonts. And all of that is true, but it's so many names that we don't even know. These are those they call old money. And that old money has been writing the rules since the olden days. And they're not going to let a new billionaire like an Elon Musk come and usurp power. Yes, you may grab money, but you won't take power. These are those people that the Elon Musk and the Zuckerbergs bow down to and kiss the ring. Even Trump himself bowed down and kissed the ring. Even though he was born wealthy, he wasn't in the elite class. And I will say to this day, he's not. He's knocking on the door of the elite class. He's still part of the master class. He's still part of the master class. I jokingly said, look at his style. You see, he's like somebody in a trailer park that won the lottery. They get their new mansion and gold here and gold over there, golden statues and things they think rich people would do. Mm-hmm. But getting back to it, this shows you that he wants to, like Elon Musk wanted to be a part of that island, begging Epstein, please let me on that island, begging him. Trump is begging the elite to be a part of their society. You could tell when he goes over to Saudi Arabia how he, is rubbing shoulders with these oil tycoons, or how he just went to China and they was just gawking over the structure. Like he was like, oh, wow, I want to be a tyrant like you. Loving it. So we see mission creep happening right now, and these people are getting a foothold, a real solid stake in the ground with tyranny. Things are not changing. Things are not going to go backwards, especially as we deal with new technology. And so we have that elite class, and then under them we have the top of the master class. These are those who politically rule the world. Your presidents, your prime ministers, all of those guys. That's that master class. Equivalent to a plantation, those who actually live in the big house, those who seem to be the owners, they're not the owners. Those are those ones that literally keep the whole system rolling. And then under the master class, you got the workers and whatnot, but then you have that servant and dependent class. And that's where most of my listeners fall, under that servant and dependent class. We are dependent upon them to give you a job. We acquiesce to whatever they say. They say, take this jab, you take the jab. They tell you that men can do this and women can do that, and that's just we just accept it. They say send your children to our halls of indoctrination. We just do it. We're dependent upon them. And they shun you being a critical thinker. They look down upon that. Anybody critically thinking on that lower class, that's a target for them. All right, they want you to be good servants. Good servants. So go to our points and places of education, get you a associate's degree, a bachelor's degree. You're really good, get a master. If you really, really, really want to climb up, get you a PhD, and we may bless you because you're keeping our social construct going. And there will be no end to those people keeping tyranny together. There are some that don't want to be, like I said from the onset, some of these elites' worst nightmare, they wake up in a cold sweat dreaming about being in a subsidized housing. That's a nightmare for some of these elites. Elon Musk wakes up, I was dreaming I was poor. I was getting ready to kill myself. Unalive myself. Those are the things, like you think about, monsters and all that. What they fear is all of their wealth to be taken away and all their power to be taken away. And they driving around in an 82 Datsun. That right there will make them drive that Datsun right off a cliff and salute the world as they go off. I don't want to be a part of it. But they teach you and tell you and show you you can have fun in that servant-dependent class. And the sad thing is they allow you to continue to work in a little bubble where you even worse than a dependent class. I saw the guys who shot that rapper, Coolio or something like that. I guess they was found guilty. You know about that, Hakam?
Nah.
Okay. I don't know the rapper. I don't listen to that. But I did see they was found guilty, and they brought in the warden of the prison that he was going to. I believe that's what it was. And he told it like it was. He said, you're going to come into my prison, and we're going to give you an inmate number. And you've gotten life without the possibility of parole. And the only time you're going to leave that prison is in a body bag. And that number will be put upon your headstone. And until then, you're going to work the plantation. We got some older ones that need to retire, so we need some young blood. We need some young bucks to come in and till the ground because we feed ourselves. And so you're going to get, and I'm just paraphrasing, a hoe and you're going to get a rake and you're going to learn how to do this, that, and the other. It sounds like a slave auction. That's what it sounds like. I literally saw with my own eyes a man going into slavery. This is not something you read about in history. This is not something, you just look at it. I believe, like I said, we saw in that case human trafficking, legal human trafficking. And now it's okay. We say, yeah, he did some crime, which he did. They did. But when that begins to move and there's a confluency of thought amongst the elites to begin to make these people more subservient, then we can see that mission creep coming upon us. That's what we talked about in AI, a surveillance state. People are watching for a reason. They're figuring you out. They're watching when to impose tyrannical laws and when they can come out with their true acts and thoughts of despotism. And so we'll see that kind of stuff creeping forward. But let's go to, as I spoke about, right, a plantation. Let's keep that analogy flowing. Anybody that had any kind of history understands what was going on the plantation. Hey, just look at a modern farm today. You look at the cattle out there and you see these little tags on them, right? Mm-hmm. Little tag got numbers on them. They're numbering everything on their plantation. They need to know how many animal they got, what animal got his vaccination, what animal had babies, how many babies she had, this heifer had, how many bulls and does needed. So all of that is about tracking the animals on the plantation. And if this is a big plantation, you need to be tracked because you are the animals that have been commodified. Let's go to the link A1 and let's read about in some of that. Let's talk about what we have become so accustomed with. A birth certificate. I know that sounds benign and that sounds innocent. And those of us who, that was born on this side of the century, we look at it like, oh, that's just the norm. Everybody do that. The birth certificate is not that old. It's not that old at all. We're just going to read a little bit from this Cambridge University article, if you would.
Birth registration and the administration of white supremacy. Abstract. Let me start there.
Yep.
All right. Birth registration formed a key part.
So they started off letting you know that birth registration and birth supremacy, or these birth certificates, was shrouded in white supremacy. Let's continue.
Formed a key part of the administration of white supremacy between Reconstruction and World War II. In the allotment of indigenous lands and the enforcement of de jure segregation by states, birth registration served an important ideological and administrative function. Because of allotment policy combined property transmission with family reorganization, it made documentation of identity more important to the federal Indian Office. The office imposed nuclear family structures on complex kin networks to establish access to land title, and it used documentation to alter family relationships to fit with the American property law.
All right. So essentially what they were doing for a native is letting them come under the registration of Negroid to take away some of their Indian land rights. And so they did it to manipulate and move around land as well. Well, let's read on.
During the same years, southern states used birth registration to fix racial identity in order to determine access to school.
Check that out. And so give me your registration. You ever go and register your children? They need to get ID and all that. Sounds so benign and innocent now, but back in the day, this is a Negro. You're not coming to our white schools. I don't care how light you look. You know how some people was passing, but they would put on there that you had a Negro father and, let's say, a white mother. They wouldn't name you mulatto. They would say Negro. That was that one blood drop, one drop rule or something like that. And you could not go to their school. It also followed by marriage. Marriage. Interracial marriages in those days were forbidden. How did they go about it? You had to show your marriage, to get a marriage license, you had to show your birth certificate. These things were critical in establishing white supremacy. Let's read on.
And many other benefits. Racial classification through birth registration. In other words, work less to record the truth than to help produce it.
Read on.
In 1936, after just 1 year of marriage.
So it goes in and start talking about a story of people who were not black, and that was interracially marriage, and they annulled their relationship. But it goes on. Time will not afford us to go through the whole article, but they talk about these subtle prejudices that came by way of the birth certificate. All right, and it's, once again, that mission creep. Things just move on. So it came there not because they was just, a benevolent society and they wanted to make sure that everybody was good. They looked at it as, how can we classify our cows? See, we don't want these black Angus cows mixing with our red Angus cows, nor do we want them mixing with the dairy cows over here. So keep those black cows, put a tag on their ear, and they can't come on this side of the field.
In terms of like birth certificates, like you were saying, that's a fairly new thing. It kind of came about in like the early 1900s. And then it wasn't really official in the United States until like the 1930s. But before then, we were talking about churches. A lot of churches were doing records, and they weren't doing records to, kind of do classifications, but to trace family lines, family lineages, and to say who was part of a church, who was baptized, all these kind of things. But then a lot of these governments started coming, and they said they want to track things that sound beneficial. Like, I want to see, it's for health records. It's to, just count our population so we know how to distribute wealth and things like that. But over time, it started to change. It went from healthcare and distribution of wealth to taxation and drafts. This is how the birth records start being used. It started being ways of tracking the citizenry rather than ways of helping and benefiting the citizens. And It usually starts with that benevolent kind of sounding thing. Like, this is to help you, when it really ends up turning into a tool to help the government.
Right. Examine that and keep an eye on that mission creep, how it starts off sweet and then it turns out to something bitter in your stomach. Just like birth certificate now and the immigrations and all of that, all of this paperwork, wasn't that a big thing in Germany? And it was like people walked around with their papers and whatnot. You had to prove and show that you had permission to do these things by way of that. You know, what it also did is fostered a mindset of individualism. As you said before, people had to claim their clan, so to speak. And it's still like that in the southern part of North America. It's like that when you go to certain country town. You come in, they don't recognize your face, and you visiting, they ask you, what's your last name? You know, and you introduce yourself. Oh, yeah, you one of those Jefferson boys? Oh, yeah, I'm with we know who you are. That's how they registered back in the day. Like you said, the church would register that you was born, and, you know, they put in there you was Christian and baptized on that day. And government records, that was part of the government records. But now then, you could just be an individual. With birth certificate, you have no clan. You don't have to say I'm from there. I'm from this place, or I'm related to these people. You just solo dolo, and you moving around. And then once again, they use that to commodify, capitalize you as an individual. Now, the sovereign citizens go really far and start talking about how there's a de facto copy, but I'm not going to get into that's their thing. But we're dealing with the clear and present danger before us. We're talking about ancient birth certificate. Not only that, right? Birth certificate, and I misused that term ancient, so it's not an ancient. It is a more modern thing. But after that came the Social Security card or the Social Security number. And that started off sweet as well.
Yeah.
They started off saying, you know, this is to help you in retirement. There's so many people, mothers dying, have not a penny to their name. What we're going to do is when you work, we're going to put money into this account for you.
Yeah.
That sounds so sweet. Wow, that's amazing.
That was another thing in the 1930s under FDR.
Right.
Social Security. That's not new.
Right. And so if they was righteous about it, they would see you put all this money in there, right? What happened? You just suddenly died and you didn't make it to retirement. You know what happened today? They keep all of that.
Yeah.
They don't turn around and say, you know, this fund now going to go to your next of kin. Oh, that money is gone. Congress used that money up 30 years ago.
Yeah.
They were saying that the Social Security Department is bankrupt. Your people, your brothers your age, y'all just throwing money in a dark hole right now.
Yeah.
Hoping in Social Security and retirement and all of that. That is madness. Started off seeming altruistic, benevolent of the government to help out the people. Now what they use Social Security numbers for? Credit. Yeah. It's only supposed to have been for the social program. Now it's credit. Now it's identification. It's all kind of things. To buy a house, I need to know. What does that, you get car insurance, where's your Social Security number? What does that have to do with all of those other things? And we can go on and on and on how Social Security is tied to it again.
Yeah.
Starts off as something beautiful, benign, actually even helpful for the American citizen, and then turn into a noose. That gold chain turned into a noose around your neck.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like definitely Social Security because, like you said, it's supposed to be something for your retirement. You put that in, the account grows, but the government set that up, and then the government had the power over it, and they executed to borrow, quote unquote, borrow from that Social Security because it just kept growing, especially during the days of the boomers. You had all these people working, all these young people putting money in, and only so many needed retirement. But they started saying, we have this big pool of money. What can we do with it? Oh, we can fund this. We can fund that. And we'll pay it back later when these 40-year-olds turn 60. We got 20 years before we need to pay that back. But that's not how it works in reality. That stuff is gone. There is no Social Security money. But that's a whole nother podcast in and of itself.
According to your man, Ben Shapiro, he said you don't need it anyway.
Yeah.
Work until you die. Only a fool would think about retirement, you stupid Goyim. Mr. Caterpillar Eyebrow said anybody trying to try to retire is foolish. Literally, that is him begging because he knows somebody in that elite master class, just putting out what Trump is putting out. We don't care about you. You are a worker, so work. We are elite. We're going to be elite. This is how they think. Wise words were written. It says that the world doesn't change in front of your eyes. It changes behind your back. And it means that you don't notice the gradual change. Some of these wise quotes are right on point. You don't notice the change. The change has happened before you know it. You're sitting in the midst of it. You know, so a lot of things is happening right before us right now. And some of us just let it be, until it becomes unbearable. And so they're moving over now to further this. We was talking about a digital ID. a digital ID. And now every country in Western society is talking about this as well. They're already moving. The elites have already mandated that everyone must have a modern birth certificate. See, nobody blinked an eye when it came up to the old birth certificates. Everybody said it was great, it was good, and they took it. And as we showed, it became abusive. And now they're saying that that paper birth certificate being held in your civic halls of history is not doing us any good right now. We need a modern birth certificate, and that modern birth certificate is all things Social Security, everything bound in one. And it is the digital ID. And this is what they're pushing for. Now, to bring forth that digital ID here in America, they're using companies like Palantir. If you'll look up Palantir for me, Hakam, not their organization, but what it is. I think it was something like a crystal ball in one of these movies or something. But Palantir is a company started by Alex Karp. This guy right here, boy, he's a special one. He's a special one. We're going to talk about this guy. See, it takes these antisocial, sociopaths to create things like this. Back in the day, my day, these guys were called nerds. And not in a beautiful way. You know, that's being taken like a badge of honor now. Yes, I'm a nerd. No, this was you have no coof, no cool, no chill. You're socially awkward. And that's all you do is dream about Star Wars and flying around in space all day. And these guys are now the leaders. Look at any of these big tech firm guys, the leaders, the Zuckerbergs and the Palantir. All these guys are some weird-looking nerds. Yes, they're technologically savvy. Yes. But once again, they're socially awkward. They need some people who have reality to be their bosses. And these guys are knocking on the door of the socially elite, and they're ready to acquiesce and push forth anything. Look at Mr. Bill Gates. Isn't he now talking about his deer ticks? Come on now. It takes a nerd to invent that.
Lone Star ticks.
Yeah, the Lone Star ticks. What about it? What is the Lone Star tick? What's going on with that?
They're saying there's an uptick of like, what is it, several like 100 million or something like that, or several 100,000 being added into, like, they're seeing more cases of ticks for some reason this year, and they don't know why. The population has exploded and the bites from these Lone Star ticks have exploded, but they speculate off of genuine reason that some of these people are dropping these ticks into certain environments so that they can go out and bite people and give them alpha-gal disease, which makes you allergic to red meat and dairy, so that you can go and find alternatives. And who owns the alternatives like Impossible and some of these soy-based meat products? People like Bill Gates. So they're seeing this uptick, and they do not know why. There is no real sound reason, but we can see a motive behind it.
Mm-hmm. I can see it. Nerds. Let's go to Article B1. Let's look at this guy who is now, I believe he's a co-founder of Palantir. Palantir has now been the chosen one to bring forth this digital ID here in America. Like I said, it is now being ushered out all throughout, the world, actually. I think it's even in Africa they're talking about the digital ID. And so now Palantir, let's look at the co-founder, and let's look at how he handles himself and how he speaks about Palantir. Let's go to B1, and let's look at this character.
Began talking, annoying each other 10 years ago. Hopefully I'm annoying you as much as 10 years ago.
Nerd.
Or more. Okay, sorry. And it's 100% true. And keep that in mind. I will tell you a secret that I hope the New York Times and the Washington Post. Okay. Sorry. And you're going to have to sit there and listen to it. And you did it. And again, yes. And we're both absorbing the full risk of each other's splendor. And at the moment, talking to you way too many other people above you, now I'm talking to you and going to. Okay. Now, true.
They say we
began talking, annoying each other 10 years ago.
Oh, that's it.
Oh, yeah.
My man is leading the campaign to get all of our information, whatever it may be, Social Security, birth certificate, your likes, and that's him. He's the head of it. Alex Karp, and he's a tiny hat wearer. You know that? They always the one, the Khazarian mafia at the head of this tyrannical government. Let's go to B1 and let's look at some more of his antics.
Always, we have a lot of individual investors on the line. Is there anything like
We're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am. Let's not talk to analysts about the burden of being right. Our burdens of investing in intelligence, our burdens of actually looking at the math, the burden of reading what the Rule of 40 is, the burden of being honest about what an enterprise software company is, or the burden of explaining to your friends that you're really happy. Every volunteer, we are crushing it. We are dedicating our company, we're dedicating our company to the service of the West of the United States of America, and we're super proud of the role we play, especially in places we can talk about.
Alex is always
Especially in places we can't talk about. They are dedicated for the advancement of the needs of the American government. And we're going to talk about what is Palantir. What is it that this socially awkward dude is doing? I don't think that's natural, either. You think that's natural?
Nah.
My man is popping, sipping, smoking, taking something. He's on something.
Dude.
He's on something. He was hanging with Bill Gates with them Russian hookers. Caught something.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had that had that itch.
Dude clearly has ADHD or something. Dude, that's not normal. And this is the guy who, I mean, what is the company Palantir doing? Like, what are they? What is the company about?
Well, let's look at it. Let's go to B3. Yeah, let's go to that link, B3. Let's look at this guy. What is he in charge? Now, if he was in charge of the Ringling Brothers Circus, I would say he's great. I would say if he's in charge of, comedy, he's in charge of the probably media Hollywood. Okay, he's where he belongs. Well, let's look at what he says Palantir is.
Two ways America can be strong vis-a-vis Africa. One is put the fear of... There are really two ways America can be strong vis-a-vis Africa. One is put the fear of death into our adversaries at any random moment, which I think, is happening for the first time in a long time. And two, get the economy to be super strong, which, and if you look, like I spent half my life in Europe, look at the difference between what's going on in Europe and what's going on here. Europe is culturally similar, should have similar ability to produce technology, to produce builders, to produce innovation, and the delta between what's happening in America and similarly situated societies is just enormous and compounding. And obviously, I would like our allies to do better, but for now we just have to focus on America, and Palantir's thriving. What about?
Yeah, he wasn't tweaking as much in that one.
Yeah.
But look at what he says, to strike fear. Palantir is there.
Death at any moment.
Yeah, death at any moment. Letting you know, first, in the other short, he said we can't talk about it, in places we can't talk about. Letting you knowing that this is something underhanded, undercover, something evil and nefarious. Now he's coming back saying it brings death upon people that America deems their enemies. Now, we've seen things that start with the military and then always come home to be used upon civilians. You ever seen these little tanks that the military used? that the police use? Mm-hmm. All of that stuff was used in Afghanistan and Iraq. And they have a surplus and they send it right back here. A lot of the drones that the police used are designed for the military, now being used right here at home. And so look at Palantir. That stuff may be used out there, but then we know that it always mirrors back right here at home. Let's continue on. Let's get clip B4.
The world. Pure ideas by the military, in this case, hopefully the U.S. Palantir is not a neocon project. Our project is to make America so strong we never fight. To make people listen up in their seats, you need to be dominant on the military and dominant on the economy, and Palantir plays a role in both of those areas. The ideas have to have a real world impact, or if those ideas make someone a lot of money. Pure ideas don't change the world. I'll tell you what changes the world. Pure ideas...
Listen to what he's saying. Because this man... his company, Palantir, has been chosen, the de facto chosen one, to create the digital ID here in America. Why this guy? with Palantir, who has the power to bring forth precipitously death upon people and strike the fear of the American government in you, they've been chosen. Remember, we started off with absolute power, corrupts absolutely. And so they're looking at absolute, right? The dynamic is that there's supposed to be the citizenry keeping the government in check, a balance. But the government now has overplayed his hand with people like Alex Karp, Peter Thiel, and Zuckerberg, and all these other guys, Elon Musk. All of these guys, these socially awkward ones, are coming together to create this state of complete surveillance, and then, once again, putting out this digital ID for complete tracking. And we're going to get into that in a moment. But this company, Palantir, does some evil. Matter of fact, is working with the tiny hats in Gaza, helping them to destroy and obliterate Gaza right there. Mm-hmm. And so we know if they can do that over there, it's nothing but a thing to bring it over here. You know, things change over time. What's socially acceptable right now may change in a year or two, or what's not acceptable may change as well. Once again, like the Voting Rights Act. Back then, it's A-OK. But let 2026 turn around. It's over. Passé. And so we have people putting their trust and faith and conviction in a government that can change on a whim, with people like Alex Karp at the helm. Let's move on to B5. Let's look really into the core of who this man is. This man that is running AI, that's really what Palantir is. It is AI, artificial intelligence. Are they moving on? I think they're calling it super intelligence now, or supreme intelligence. I think that's what it is. As a matter of fact, we mentioned that a couple of weeks back, too. Yeah. AI is going to change. It's not going to be artificial anymore. That sounds like, you know, that's degrading to a, you know, somebody call you artificial. That's like, you know, I don't like that. But now supreme intelligence sound like a god, you know, the supreme intelligence. Nonetheless, let's look into the heart, the mind, the core of Alex Karp. B5.
Working class, particularly white males. So when you look at coverage in mainstream newspapers about the constitutionality of blowing up boats that are bringing fentanyl here, I guarantee you, if that fentanyl was killing people at schools we went to, potentially your kids are going to, it would be constitutional to blow boats. There is selective instrumental.
You can stop it right there. I've heard that narrative before. You know, there's a war upon the white male here in America. That narrative don't stand alone. You know, there's a lot of supremacists that beat that drum. And so he's coming from another angle. And then he's talking about white male, but I thought you was Jewish. I thought that was a whole other nationality, you know? No, they're one and the same. And so this is the guy, once again, that is the head of Palantir, who's been now anointed, the chosen one, to push forth this iron fist to get the people all together as one and capitulate to the government, not only the American government, we're talking about the world government. And see, one of the concerns is when a digital ID come forth, that with that digital ID, everything is on it. Your school records is on it, your vaccine records, what you've done, where you've been, what you bought, what you did not buy, and also taxes. You know, we're going to talk about the digital dollar in a moment, but with that digital ID, once again, that giving somebody $100 and saying that's good, all that is taxable income to the person who received it. Mm-hmm. And so all of this is what absolute power looks like. And so they don't like when you have, you know, these loopholes, when the lay person have some loopholes. They love it when the elite class have loopholes. But the lay person, no, we need to track everything. We need absolute power.
I want to add another detail. If we can click that next link that's in there about
B6?
Nah, about Peter Thiel. Okay. Because Alex Karp, he's the CEO right now of Palantir, but it was co-founded with Peter Thiel. Mm-hmm. Anybody knows about Peter Thiel or hears about him, you know, he's an interesting guy. So he's a German who was born in Germany in the 60s. You know, so obviously it's post World War II. But if you get to that point, that's, you know, you see that clip there. But I'll read it. So he was born in Germany, and then his parents moved around a lot. So his parents moved when in his early years, and obviously the early years are formative. So he moved to San Francisco, I believe. Then he moved out. Then they would move to South Africa, and he was living there. Actually, he was living in what's now Namibia. Namibia used to be a German colony in Africa. So it says before settling in Foster City, California, in 1977, the Teal family lived in South Africa and Southwest Africa, modern-day Namibia, in the time of apartheid. So he was in Namibia during apartheid when blacks and whites were separated. Peter changed elementary school 7 times. He attended a German language school in Swakopmund for 2 years that required students to wear a uniform and employ corporal punishment. But it goes on to say he, started to dislike uniformity, regimentation. He disliked that. But it says the German community in Swakopmund was known at the time for its continued glorification of Nazism. Why is it that his family moved to this community? Not just because they were Germans, because they identified with what they believed in. And so Teal was noted as smart but lonely, withdrawn boy with whom others would not mingle because they knew he would not stay long in the town. Not because, it's going to go on to say that. He was a nerd. It's not because he didn't agree with them. It's because he was a nerd that they wouldn't associate with him.
Right. He was anti-social. Like I said, this new title that they've thrown on it, like it's something cool to be a nerd. Yeah. You're a tech guy. You got money. You do all that. No, these dudes were, again, socially awkward.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So he was growing up amongst neo-Nazis and amongst, an apartheid regime. This is what he grew up amongst. This is what he saw. It didn't say he didn't like the apartheid. He didn't like the uniforms. He didn't like the corporal punishment. You gonna say something?
A racist nerd. Dang.
Right. He's nerdy and racist. It goes on to say, if we put an article back up, it says Teal played Dungeons and Dragons.
That is definitely a nerd game.
And was an avid reader of science fiction with Isaac Asimov and Robert A. Heinlein among his favorite authors. He is a fan of J.R.R. Tolkien's work, stating as an adult that he had read The Lord of the Rings more than 10 times.
Oh, he's a double nerd.
Yeah.
That's nerd stuff right there, for real. Go ahead.
So why Lord of the Rings?
Mm-hmm.
Why Lord of the Rings? Why do you think he started a company called Palantir?
Yeah.
I think there's another article we got that in the.
While you find that, right? Go to Alex Carpin clip B6. So once again, as we stated before, right, these socially awkward people back in the day, the 80s and the 90s and before, got to watch that movie, Nerds and Revenge of the Nerds. It's funny. It's a comedy, but it's definitely kind of, hilarious. But these socially awkward people were fit to do certain things. They was definitely not cut out to rule and govern society. So we had an awkward, confluence of time right now where these people who know nothing about society, like this guy, he was awkward, but now he's running society. He's making policy for societies, but he never fit in society. How can somebody who never fit in society now turn out to be the head of what is socially the norm? Their awkwardness is going to be put forth as the norm. Well, let's go ahead and hit that clip.
Believe that all cultures are equal. If you were to give this book to like the philosophy department, political theory, or literature department of any school in this country, they will burn it. They'll burn it for a lot of reasons, but the primary reason they will burn it is I am not saying all cultures are equal. In fact, I'm saying this nation is incredibly special, and we should not view it as equal. We should view it as superior. I don't
believe that cultures are equal. They're institutions of higher learning that an inferior culture, race, will grab it and burn it. Our culture You know, he was, like I said, these are the guys that all assimilate together. Spent time, I think Elon Musk, isn't he, South Africa as well, dealing with all of that, parents coming out
Yeah,
from
he
apartheid.
was with Peter Thiel starting PayPal.
There you go.
Some of these other
there you
companies.
go. And so what do they mean superior? The layperson may say they're talking about the superiority of American. You know, the American way and, you know, the Americana, the doctrine. No, it is not. They're not talking about that. They're not talking about that whatsoever. They're talking about white supremacy. And that anybody else would get this and really look at it for what it is. And yes, people would burn it. They were saying you want to lord over and rule over a complete people or the entire world. Burn that. Burn that. That is not moral. That is not right. That is not good. But these inbreds, these weak ones, have risen to the top. And the elite class is looking at them, choosing them, putting them in places where they can actually not only live but thrive. As I said, again, Alex Karp has been his organization, his corporation, Palantir, has been the chosen one to wreak havoc, hell, death upon the enemies of America in the beginning. But again, why would they use such a deadly organization to begin to lay the foundation of a digital ID? Because they're waiting on you to rebel. And what are they going to do? Exactly what he said. Put forth the fear of death in you. You come against this government and the people. That's their right. Nothing of what I'm saying right now is anti-American. America was built upon the right of the people. The government should fear the people, not the people fearing the government. But all of that has changed. Mm-hmm. And so what I'm saying right now may sound radical in today's time, and it may get us deplatformed. But this is what civil wars were started over. This is what the Tea Party was all about. This is what the Revolutionary War was all about.
It started for less than this.
Yes, true indeed. True indeed. And so now we see, and they're aware, trust me, with their AI, they have scanned every rebellion on this earth. And they know, right, to quiet, put forth propaganda, quail insurrections, just in the media, all of that. Don't let it catch on. And so they're doing it right now. And once again, it's happening. The digital ID is here. You was talking about the real ID. That is already here. The real ID, everybody who got a license, got the little star, American star on there, they've already, vetted you. That's the first step. That is the first step. You can't do it. You don't get the real ID, you can't get on the airplane. There's a whole bunch of things you cannot do. But it's moving on from real ID to a digital ID. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, go ahead.
You want to look at what that what Palantir is or where it comes
let's
from?
do that. Yeah, exactly.
That article at the top, the link at the top. Yeah, so this is where they get it from. Remember, what's his name? Peter Thiel was big fan of Lord of the Rings.
Right. Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah. Let's look what that is.
All right, it says a Palantir is one of the several indestructible crystal balls from J.R.R. Tolkien's epic fantasy novel, Lord of the Rings.
A crystal ball?
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings is straight devilish. And you've got your children watching that, little spooks, gooks, goblin, witches, and warlocks and whatnot, and you are in covenant, or you call yourself a Christian or a Hebrew, you need to be ashamed of yourself. You Hebrew or you Christian in word only. And so now we got geeks like this. We have nerds like this looking at the Lord of the Rings. Read that again.
A Palantir is one of the several indestructible crystal balls from J.R.R. Tolkien.
Indestructible crystal balls. Mm-hmm. This company, this corporation is indestructible. And again, prognostic. We can see into the future. We can predict through our AI what those miscreants will do. And we step in and circumvent them. In some degree, it sounds like that movie, The Matrix, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Some degree. But again, we see all of the shenanigans of the tiny hats coming out doing what they do. They have their own eschatology, their own prophecy. They really believe that this catastrophic event of reducing the amount of people on the earth is going to bring forth their Hamashiach. And so they are forcing the hand. They literally believe they can force the hand, or what they call Hashem, the name. which is abominable, but a whole nother thing. And so now we supposed to be pawns in the midst of that. Again, you are dependent class. You depend upon them. If you need to go get a job, you depend upon them. If you must pay your property tax, you are dependent upon them. If you are, again, in any shape, form, or fashion, have to go get a license to get on the road, to transport it, you are a dependent class. Trust me, these people don't do that. None whatsoever. These people can do whatever they do in the Epstein file, and again, with impunity, just move on. A fraction of that being done by you or me would have us doing a 20-year bid in one of these prisons. And so, once again, the elites nod their hat and say, let him go, keep him. Let them, oh, no, that's the dependent class. They should know better than that. Stealing bread to go feed their family. What kind of madness is this? So, yes, that's what we're dealing with. Amazing right there. Let's go to our AI our article on Palantir.
Well, lastly, I wanted to read that part. It says the word comes from a Quenya, which is the made-up language in the Lord of the Rings. Paladin, which means far, and Tyr, watch over. Wow. The stones were used for communication to see events in other parts of the past. So it is a mythical way of watching over the people.
They could have chose anything.
Yeah.
They could have called it, the government assistant or whatever. They specifically, with their nerd mentality, picked out something that most people are not going to look at and said, this is just who we are in plain sight. That's what it is. And so nothing good can come from this. Absolute autocratic despots doing what they do. Again, also, we need, if you want to get in on this, hit us up on the Zoom. Go ahead and talk about that.
Yep. In the pinned comment, you'll see a link to join the Zoom. The Zoom is open for everybody to come and talk with us. Go ahead and join that channel. Join the chat. Speak with us. Confer with us. Talk about what's going on today and some of the tyranny and some of these companies. If you feel like you've been spied on or whatever it may be, you feel like there are some Palantirs watching over you, let us know. Talk about it. Bring it out in this podcast.
I think he said that in one of the clips. But did he call him a Palantirite or something?
Oh, Palantir, something like that.
Yeah. So you're either with us or against us. You got to be a Palatirian or a Palantirite. And you got people that's going to push it. They're going to go with it, It's going to advance their lives. And like we have said in our AI podcast, we talked about how AI will become so human-like. It will project that superior knowledge where people will assume that it is God. People are doing it already. I see it all the time when we, whether it's on social media, somebody may drop something about the Bible, and people will cut and paste some quick Chat GPT answer. No, that's not right. Chat GPT says, they've already depended upon it to bring forth the good gospel, as opposed to doing the research themselves. So let's get our article up about Palantir.
Start right here at
as of May 26th. Yep.
All right. As of May 26th, Palantir Technologies is heavily involved in the U.S. government data integration with its software powering surveillance, immigration enforcement, and tax administration.
Check that out. So not only is it there for regulating in immigration, but it's also there to watch over your tax obligations. As I said before, you may Venmo some money here, you may Cash App some money there. All of that is being watched. And the government will say, you gave your son $200 when he needed it. That's taxable income. You need to pay your taxes on that. Or where did you get that money from? Where did you get that money from? They already know because everything will be digital at that time. Oh, you got it from this person. What did they do? What did you got a side job that you're not paying taxes on? Let's read on.
Which critics argue functions as a de facto digital ID system by aggregating personal data. While not a traditional...
So aggregating personal data, they're getting a little bit from your social over here. They're getting your social media. They're getting it from your banking. They're getting it from here, there, everywhere, everything you've gone, flock cameras, all of that stuff, a confluence, a convergence of information all come to the Palantir Stone so that they can predict the past and, again, prognosticate about your future. For what? Are they trying to advance you? No. They're trying to predict so that they can have absolute power over not only you, but everybody. This is already happening. Let's read.
While not a traditional digital ID card provider, Palantir's tool, such as Gotham's platform and Immigration OS, are used to build comprehensive profiles of Americans and immigrants.
Check that out. Comprehensive profiles on you. Everybody has a profile right now. Everybody have one on, whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not.
Whether you like it or not.
Exactly. It's happening. And it will be used against you in the court of law. It is not there to say, wow, I'm glad you had my profile. I thought I lost my pictures. You know, when I lost my phone, it was in the cloud. Man, I'm glad Palantir was there. Oh, it's not there for that. They're watching every and anything you do. And just like Walmart, we talked about that, in Target, they watch you steal. They saw you. They saw you steal that grape. They saw it. You picked that grape off. You ate that grape. They saw you. Then they saw you pick up a peach. When all of that come up to a prosecutable amount, whatever it is in your state or your city, if it's $1,000, they're gonna be like, you get that grape and you eating it. Sir, come with me. And they're gonna pull up to 10,000 times you done stole what they consider stealing, and then they're gonna prosecute you.
Yep.
Or ban you from every Walmart or why Palantir is right there.
You see, one of the tools is called the Gotham platform. Why Gotham?
Yeah.
They think they're Batman. They think they're hiding in the shadows in the dark, ready to quote unquote stop crime and hop down and beat down the criminals. Like I said, they want to put the fear of Batman in you. Everybody sees the stuff on social media. They talk about Batman was like a terrorist in Gotham. And but you see, it's also for Americans and immigrants. It's not just localized to America. He's talking about he wants to put the fear, or Alex Karp was talking about put the fear of the American system into their adversaries. They're talking about going multinational as well. So it's not just something that is restricted to America.
Right. I don't think they think they're Batman. I think they think they're the Penguins. Inside joke. But, you know, you're right. So they're nerds looking at some of these, you know, this science fiction, Marvel and DC comics, and literally looking at that stuff, and now they are manifesting it. They are making it real life. We saw my man who was itchy in the seat. We saw Alex Karp. Yeah, he was giddy on them things, man. Whatever he was doing, he was on his little giddy little movement right there. And this guy is in charge of pressing you. This guy is in charge of tracking you, limiting you. Let's go ahead and read on in the article.
All right. These are some of the key aspects of Palantir's role in the U.S. data system. It says surveillance and immigration OS. ICE has used Palantir's for over a decade, utilizing it for near real-time visibility of immigrants. The new immigration OS allow for the tracking of individuals by linking to vast amounts of data, including social media, cell phones, and DMV records.
Wow. So if they can do that to an immigrant, and that's, once again, that's permissible here. Everybody would be like, yeah, I mean, get the immigrants out of here. They just flip the switch and say, no, citizens too. What? DMV records, your cell phone? We talk about that. You could be talking about getting a pizza. I think we need to get a pizza later on. You get on your phone and, oh, wow, Domino's got a you know, whatever, Little C's got a special. Wow. You know, why? Because he's listening in, capitalizing.
And you see it says ICE has been using Palantir for over a decade. Trump was in office.
You're right.
Over a decade ago.
There you go.
So we talked about Trump in the beginning, but he is just another puppet of the tyrannical system that America is governed under.
No doubt. We talk about that, whether you Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, all of you are just certain parts of this same plane that's flying. Mm-hmm. Nothing different whatsoever. Mm-hmm. Let's continue.
All right. It says one big, beautiful data set. Reports in 2025 indicated that the Trump administration utilized Palantir to compile data across various agencies into a central system. This includes merging Medicaid data for ICE arrests.
So all of our sisters and brothers getting them stamps, Section 8, all of that is data for the government. Now you can see why they are so thirsty for data. You know, everybody's buying people's data. And it's not just, once again, to put, a pizza ad on your phone. They want to, through their Palantir stones, predict what you will do. Let's continue.
IRS and taxpayer data. The IRS has employed Palantir software to analyze sensitive taxpayer data.
That's crazy right there. That's when it gets into your pocket. That's why they're coming down so easily on everybody with the PPP loans, everybody that was scamming and all that. As I said before, Target knew exactly what you was doing. You know, they saw you years ago stealing out of there. Same thing with the feds. They arrest somebody, they ambush somebody, and then you hear in the news they was watching them for 10 years. Like, wow. Okay, that's what Palantir is doing, collecting all the data on you for years, predicting what you will do. And they are right there when the prediction is right. And what does that do? That emboldens them. They feel like that they are gods.
I want to read on this too. This is an AI overview, but I looked up. Now, I think they say about Obama, he was one of the ones who relied heavily on drone strikes throughout his presidency, all throughout. And he's killed American civilians or American citizens with drones. This says President Barack Obama's administration extensively utilized the American Civil Liberties Union to legally challenge the transparency and civil liberties concerns of the targeted drone program while simultaneously utilizing data analytics from companies like Palantir Technologies to support intelligence operations. During the Obama years, the U.S. military and intelligence community heavily relied on Palantir's data integration and analytics platform. The software helped fuse massive amounts of fragmented intelligence to uncover patterns and identify high-value targets, shaping the modern, quote, kill chain, unquote, used in counterterrorism and drone campaigns. So it's not just, this is something that there is an actual backing behind it, what they're using Palantir for. They're using it to trace people and say, this is who we want to strike and blow up with drones. And this has been happening before Trump. These is just Obama, Trump, Biden, all of them are just part and parcel of this tyrannical system of having an overview of you, watching over you from a distance, and deciding what they want to do. If they want to let you live, they want to strike you.
Yeah. Right. With impunity. There's no blowback, no recourse. They do what they want to do. Let's continue to read.
In February 2026, DHS awarded a new contract, potentially up to $1 billion, to Palantir for enhanced AI tools to aid in case management, threat identification, and data integration.
Wow. Department of Homeland Security is now, again, this is that security that deals with you. Yes, it's supposed to be about outside threats, but they're watching you. $1 billion were sent over there, and that's just the beginning. Continue.
Palantir has been involved with the Department of Government Efficiency at the IRS to assist in constructing databases in 2025 and 2026.
So Elon Musk, when he had his little Doge, department there, Palantir was right there, his buddy, fellow tech nerd, geeks, assisting in watching over the people. Continue.
All right, these are the controversies and the concerns. Digital ID skepticism. While expanding its footprint in the U.S. government, reports indicate that Palantir specifically shield away from bidding on certain digital ID schemes elsewhere due to controversy and its own internal policies, as noted by Yahoo Finances. Lawmakers and civil liberty groups have expressed concerns that the aggregation of these databases could create a surveillance nightmare, allowing for tracking the movements and activities of millions of Americans.
All right, so that digital ID skepticism is they're staying right here, lording over so-called Americans. This is the heart of it. And then the spider's tentacles or the octopus tentacles will move out into all over the world. But it's starting right here. And I heard that the digital ID in the UK is actually one of the former prime minister's son has been chosen to.
Yeah, Tony
Blair. Yeah, his son has been chosen to run that. You know, I tell you, cronyism is right there. You know, these guys are next to and close to the elite class. Well, let's continue. And I believe also it is not only a new form of a birth certificate, but it's a new colonialism as well. You know, going into Africa and submitting and subjugating people under this digital tyranny is the same way of doing it physically. Mm-hmm. You can't move money. You can't do this. You better acquiesce to our rules and this and vaccines and these drugs and that and pass these laws, or else we shut off this and we shut off that, or we send drones over you. I think, too, that's what military campaigns will exist. It will not be conquistadors landing on your coast, coming out with coat and mail and swords and beating up the natives. It would be that they're sending a 1 million strong drone squadron to come and blow up your capital. And not one physical man was involved, except those our AI now is controlling. You ever see those thousands of drones in China come up and make pictures and all of that?
Yeah.
All that is AI. There's not like 10,000 men moving them things around. That's AI. Mm-hmm. Artificial intelligence is making lively pictures with lights. And so how much more would it be just to send 1,000 drones out, you know, to a country they don't like and just drop bombs and come on back?
And, you know, the sad part is a lot of us are willingly taking the fun and the convenience of these tools that in the back end are watching over us and lording over us and being used as tools of tyranny. I don't know if you've been seeing on Facebook. I've been seeing it's mostly women. They take a picture and AI is supposed to generate something that says me and mail me, the male version of me.
Oh wow!
And yeah, and that's not like I'm seeing one or two. I'm seeing so many pictures of so many people doing that. Obviously, that's AI generating it, and now they're scanning your face and they're using that as something to use for facial recognition.
Yep.
Same thing with the digital IDs. It seems convenient just to add your ID to your Apple wallet or your Google wallet. That just seems so convenient. All I have to have when I leave my home is my phone. That's all I need is a phone. I don't need my wallet because I have my cards. I have my insurance cards. I have my Medicare card, my credit cards, my debit card, and my ID right here on my phone. That just sounds so convenient. But when you put everything into a digital database that you don't own, somebody else has access to all of that data. Pair it with all the other applications down on your phone. Your GPS is pinging your location everywhere you go. We have it, the real ID that's tied to this phone is showing that such and such is at this place at this time doing X, Y, and Z and paying for this. We're not being, they're so deceptive. We're not being forced and coerced to do this. Or we are being coerced. We're being deceived and tricked into willingly allowing these things to go on, like allowing Palantir to gather and aggregate all our information and bring it together and then have people like Obama determine if they want to drone strike you or not.
Right. And we saw Mr. Karp speak about what he can't speak about. He said certain things we just can't talk about. These are those secret missions overseas, abroad, and also domestically. Things are happening right now. The American government has always entrenched upon and infringed upon the rules of the Constitution, and they just kept it low key. We know some of the things that George Bush Sr. did. You know, we know some of the stuff that George Bush did, as you spoke about Obama, bombing people who are American citizens with no due process. Things are happening right now. But under the rule of American security, they allow them to do it. Look how many experiments we talked about in that AIDS class. How many experiments that they did on the American people, like it was nothing. Again, starting back with the plantation scenario, you are a cow, you are a goat, you are a sheep with a tag on your ear, and they're saying, you know what, we'll compromise 30. We got thousands. Just get 30 and take it over here and do what we do. And when they get their answers from the experiment from the 30s, now put that upon the rest of the flock, the peasants. Let's go over to digital currency. So we're seeing that they're doing these things right now, setting up for their grandiose plan. Their grandiose plan, again, is absolute power. And I say that they will achieve it. The way things are going right now, you want to talk about prognostic. We want to talk about looking at the future. The American people, the world, is doing nothing. The voices have been silenced. I'm not saying that people are not in an uproar. I'm saying right now the media portals that's supposed to be promoting this, they own it. So you'll never see this on legacy media. You'll never see ABC, CNN, Fox, and all of that talking about there was a million group march, and they would never talk about that. That's quelled. And then AI will talk about all the dissidents that was there, all the people that were against Palantir. Now go follow them, watch their lives and everything they do. Let's move over to them now in and with that digital ID, bringing forth a digital currency. Now, I'm not talking about cryptocurrency. I'm talking about that central bank currency. We're talking about that CBDC, right? That central bank digital currency, which, like everything, like a birth certificate, start off good. Crypto is going to start off good. Everything's going to be great. People are going to make $1 million. And then the government going to come in and say, we got our own. This is what we got right here. And anybody using their own, currency and whatever, you're going to have to fall under these rules. But this is where they're going. Because why? They are thirsty. They are addicted to power. And how do they get that power? By amassing and taking your data. Let's read what we got here.
CBDCs are criticized as a significant threat to financial privacy, personal liberty, and economic stability. As a government-controlled, programmable digital currency, CBDCs could empower authorities to track, limit, or freeze personal funds in a way that physical cash cannot.
Wow, check that out. They can track who you gave money to, where you got money from. See, they can do that today. But they'll tell you, we don't know where Epstein got his millions. We just don't know. Yeah. It just popped up. All money right now can be tracked, especially large sums like $500 million and billions of dollars. Nobody's going around with suitcases of billions of dollars. Right, but they don't want to track it. But here is a more legal form of tracking everything. They don't want to track the billion. That's already tracked. They want to track every little dime, every little dollar. I can see that. And as always, they're supposed to have gotten rid of being an indentured servant. Are they supposed to have gotten rid of being going to prison for, I think it's called indebtor's loan or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
They're supposed to have gotten rid of that.
Prison.
Debtor's prison. Yeah. They're supposed to have got rid of that. But if you don't pay your child support, isn't that a debt? What happened? You don't pay your child support?
Suspend your license.
You can go to jail. You can literally go to jail if you don't pay that debt. Yeah. See, that all sounds good to those who are like, yes, take care of the woman. He's a deadbeat. Mm-hmm. But then MasterCard, Visa card say, yeah, you don't pay the debt. Yeah, you go to jail. Pay your debt. Anybody that reneges upon and don't pay their Visa card, we need to put them in jail. All of a sudden, it's what? Mm-hmm. What? That's that mission creep. Everybody is for it when it's a deadbeat dad. Deadbeat dad, go to jail, take his license. But again, what about the credit card companies? What if they turn around and say, you didn't pay your Visa debt right now, your license has been suspended. You're going to jail if you don't pay this in 30 days, whatever. Come on. You cannot be so biased in what they love to have that. They love it when you're like that. And they manipulate the mind of the people by doing that. Let's read that again, actually.
Central bank digital currencies, which is CBDC, are criticized as a significant threat to financial privacy, personal liberty, and economic stability. As a government-controlled programmable digital currency, CBDC could empower authorities to track, limit, or freeze personal funds in a way that physical cash cannot.
Freeze personal funds in a way that cash cannot. They can't come and be every place at all times and taking away all the money that people have stashed away. But with digital currency, if you didn't take this jab, your money is froze. Oh, we don't want you going abroad. We want to you have not been tested. So we're not going to let your digital ID go outside of whatever, a quarter of a mile of your home. Oh, they have authority and power to do that. And you didn't do anything in the beginning, you won't do anything there. Yeah, you may do something again. It's like going to an ocean and the wind is just coming in your face. You're screaming in the ocean. It's drowned out. People are screaming right now, it's drowned out because CNN won't cover it. Fox will not cover it. Some independent news will not cover it. But again, they have the ability to freeze funds for people that they do not like. And who's at the head of it? Carp. He's right there with his goofy moving around and all that. I don't like what you're doing. Shut him down. Go ahead.
No.
Let's go ahead and read on.
The evils or risks associated with CBDCs, as highlighted by critics and analysts, are often broken down into the following areas: surveillance and loss of privacy. Unlike physical cash, which allows anonymous transactions, a CBDC is traceable.
I think I heard Elizabeth Warren was talking about, cryptocurrency, and she was talking about this is what the mafia, this is untraceable. It's always the negative. Look, these people do this stuff legally. These people are not under the radar anymore. It's called loopholes. All right? This is not for money laundering between, some secret, some gang member over here and gang member over there. This is just to trace the regular American citizen, to track, trace, and to limit their funds. And not just in regular time, but when stuff pop off. I remember they was doing a protest in Canada. You remember the truckers convoy?
Yeah.
And what did they do?
Froze their accounts.
Froze all of it. And so they was building money. People, they was donating. They had a GoFundMe and all of that. They froze all of that money to stop protests. These people were not violent. They wasn't burning down the city. They just did not like what they was protesting about. And I think that was Trudeau over that during that time,
Yeah.
Real democratic so-called, person, but froze. And so once again, giving you those insights of what they will do. Let's read on.
The central bank can monitor every transaction, creating unprecedented potential for state surveillance.
How you like those facts? Monitor everything you do. Everything. How about that, right? You get a little ping on your ID saying, you know what? We don't like that food choice. Your cholesterol is getting a little high. All right, so we don't need you eating meat products anymore for the next 32 days. And then a timer comes up on your digital ID of when you can buy meat again. Mm-hmm. You're not eating enough. What we said the food pyramid is. You're not following that. And here's the things you can buy. You can buy McCormick because they are with us, and you can buy this company for they are with us. But anything other than that, you can't. This thing, again, despots and tyrants love this kind of stuff. Tyrannical governments love this absolute power, lording over the people. Let's continue.
Transactional data could be exposed to government agencies and potentially hacked, raising serious Fourth Amendment concerns. 2, financial control and censorship. Governments could set rules on how, when, or where money is spent. For instance, funds could be programmed to expire or be blocked if used for unapproved purchases.
Wow. That's absolute power right there. Mm-hmm. You buy what I tell you to buy. All right. And then we're going to give you this stimulus check. And the stimulus check must stimulate the economy. It must be spent in 7 days or it, poof, disappears. And you got to buy this. You got to buy Jordans. I can see that already. And you got to buy this. You got to stimulate the economy. No, you can't invest in a home. You cannot invest in this. You got to spend it on something frivolous. Let's continue.
A CBDC allows governments to freeze or restrict access to funds for individuals who fall out of favor, such as dissidents or protesters, without needing a court order.
So we already talked about that, right? The Canadian a truck convoy. They considered them dissidents and they considered them, protesters. And they was like, look, block it. Stop all of that. And so that's anybody that the government deems. Let's look back in history. With Martin Luther King, would he be considered a dissident? Would he be blocked? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Malcolm X, yes. All of the civil rights, yes. You know, we can go way in political parties, yes. You would have been blocked. You'd have been deemed, you know, a rogue, a miscreant, somebody who is not for the program. Let's continue.
A CBDC system could be linked to a social credit system where behavior affects your ability to purchase goods.
What more need we say? What needs to be said beyond this? How can they track your behavior through all the other Palantir tentacles that are a part of you? All right, your phone can tell you, you already know it. You use Google Maps. And in Google Maps, it tells you your speed. What if they're telling you we don't like you was riding on whatever, 95, and we don't like that you hit 78 miles an hour? Clearly it says 70 right there. And so your insurance rate goes up instantly, live. All right, this goes on. We're going to send you a ticket live. I know no police caught you, but we caught you. Or whatever it may be, wherever you may go. We don't like that you've been doing this in your backyard. You're planting your garden is too big. See, we don't like that. You're planting all this nutritious food, and that means you took this much from the Sam Walton family. We don't like that. Destroy that okra and that tomato and those beans and the watermelon that you grew. You only can have one row. You can't have 6 rows. They're watching. They can say that. I know it sounds draconian now, but many things worse than that have been done. Well, let's continue.
If people move their money from commercial banks, so this is the third economic disruption and risk.
Mm-hmm.
It says disintermediation of banks. If people move their money from commercial banks to secure digital cash accounts with the central bank, it could starve commercial banks of deposits, reducing their ability to lend and damage.
Go down to the fourth one now, because that's propaganda. And so, but again, we see absolute control. It's called tyranny. And that should always be the founding fathers of America, the United States of America, tried their best with their primal minds to try to create a balance. They created a constitutional republic. And they sat back and was like, look, we need balance. We don't need a monarchy. We need balance. We need the people to be able to balance it. But if anybody called themselves a red-blooded America and they can look at what's going on today and stomach it, you're fooling yourself. There is no balance anymore. The tyrannical government has overplayed its hand and is squashing the people.
If you want a modern-day example of this, there's Edward Snowden.
There
Snowden
you go.
Was an NSA agent, and he was seeing how they were abusing the Patriot Act and going spying on Americans. Every phone call, everything that you had going on. And then when he finally leaked that information, he couldn't stomach it and leaked it. What did they do? For one, obviously they sought to arrest him, and he fled to Russia. He fled to Hong Kong, and then I believe to Russia. But it says the U.S. Justice Department took legal action to seize his assets and some of his profits from a memoir that he wrote about it. So he wrote a book about what happened to him about leaking these documents, or leaking that the NSA was spying on American citizens without a warrant, just tossing the Fourth Amendment to the side. And it says, in 2019, the U.S. Justice Department filed a civil lawsuit against Snowden's publisher, Macmillan, to stop him from collecting profits on his memoir, Permanent Record. Asset forfeiture. In 2020, a federal judge ordered Snowden to surrender over $5 million in proceeds from his book and speaking fees. The U.S. government and his legal team reached an agreement to place those funds in a trust, though collecting the money has remained a complex international issue. So look at how it wasn't necessarily as simple to freeze his funds then. Imagine if there was a digital currency and everything was flowing through there. It would be a simple pause and stop, not because he's doing something illegal, but because he leaked information that we were doing something illegal. And so they can easily come in and stop you like that. You know, giving them, you already see how it was. And I don't remember exactly when all the things, the Snowden time frame was, but this is, I believe, in the early 2010s, what they were doing. Imagine how far it has gone in those, the decade plus that has transpired since the days of Snowden.
Right. Instead of receiving the Nobel Peace Prize for exposing tyranny, my man was on the run. I think he's been since acquitted, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think he went back to his home country or something like that, but he had to sign some agreement that he wouldn't talk, he wouldn't do any of that. And so, but once again, instead of receiving award after award for being a whistleblower, exposing the government that's supposed to work for the people, exposing them, lording over the people, oppressing the people, watching the people. We talked about that in that surveillance class, is that the NSA is sharing all the information that it gets on the American citizens with Israel. What can they possibly use that information for? They have their own part. They are part of Palantir. We already know it. They are part of this evil regime, again, that is subjugating, that is preparing for complete all-out subjugation of the people. So let's talk about Zoom. Anybody want to get in on this roundtable discussion that we're talking about? This digital ID, this absolute surveillance state, tyranny, a tyrannical government. Those of you that's on child support, call in. That we can see that being completely and utterly abused. But before we go on to that, let's go ahead and send that commercial from our sponsor.
Once again, Infinite Waters is an electrolyte hydration mix that you add to your water or any of your beverages of choice, and it replenishes you, it hydrates you. Water alone is not enough to hydrate. You think drinking water is sufficient, but your cells need electrolytes for that water to permeate through the cell walls. You're not getting real hydration without some sort of electrolyte, and this is packed with 77 plus minerals. So we highly advise you go to the Amazon page, go and order a bottle of Living or Infinite Waters. It is something that is a game changer, something that I drink on a daily basis. So I definitely recommend that everybody does the same. Once again, link is in the description of the YouTube video, and you can see it on the screen. You can scan the QR code. Once again, big thanks to our sponsor, Infinite Waters, for helping us out with this podcast.
And if you got a finicky palate, this is odorless. It is tasteless. It is just like drinking pure water, and that's exactly what it is. And everyone who purchased a little bit of Infinite Water helps out the podcast. So,
Absolutely.
Again, if you have not subscribed and you find this to be worthy content, go ahead and subscribe. Send this to your people. Like I said, we're talking to that person. I guess we will all be that servant class. You know, none of us are part of the elites. They wouldn't accept us in the elite class. We're too moral. We're too spiritual. We're looking for a beautiful, benevolent time to come where nations are not oppressing nations and people are not oppressing people. No one is looking to have absolute power to oppress other people. You know, only those people who are socially awkward think that that is a normal thing. And so people who are socially in the middle understands that they love when people love and when people have fun, and it's great to watch people having fun and enjoying themselves. But only a tyrant wants to subject and lord over a group of people so that he may constantly have his dominion. You know, so once again, we are living in some really, really tyrannical days. If you open up your eyes and you look around, again, the frogs in the pot warming up feels good until it gets to a boiling point. Like I said before, child support sounds great until the credit card companies say, no, you owe us a debt, just like he owes a debt of child support. You owe a debt to Visa. Mm-hmm. Or what about, these, brothers and sisters that may be, getting that government assistance, by nefarious means, They're going to find out who living in the house. That used to be a thing back in the day, getting that welfare. Part of welfare was if there was a man in the house, every man in the house must be working or he couldn't be there. But, look, through that phone, we heard a deep voice. His name is Tyrone Jenkins. We know who he is. You cut off and get out of the house. Section 8 is gone. It's all good till it ain't, as they say. And so we should reject it. We shouldn't take what we think is great for us and what's good for us and then try to throw away the bones. All of it is evil, and all of it will and can be used against you in their credit score system, their social credit score system. And to rank high in their credit social system, you have to be completely compliant. You can't raise up any kind of opposition to them whatsoever, even though from the conception of this country, it was and is your inalienable right to protest an evil government. People want to talk about the Second Amendment. They want to talk about, the right to bear arms. We hear it all the time. Those of us that are in certain circles, that those inalienable rights was given unto you just in case the government got tyrannical. Mm-hmm. And you can come together with your militia and reset things. Let me just say it that way. Reset things. But they're making sure that anybody with that mindset will be offed. You ever notice, man, that a lot of times you just be watching the news and you'll see a house that was just completely obliterated? They'll be like, oh, it was a gas pipe leak. I always wondered, all these gas pipe leaks, what's going on? They don't know how to fix, gas connections. There's something to that. The house completely blows up. It's completely gone. And every time it's dismissed with gas pipe leak, that might have been somebody whose social credit score wasn't right.
I just was seeing something about that. I think they're releasing another documentary about the housing complex in, was it Philadelphia? I forgot what they called it, but in the 80s, how they, the government, the police actually firebombed and, dropped bombs on their houses.
Yep.
On American civilians.
Same thing happened in, I believe, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Right. They just, airplanes just dropping tar bombs of fire, blazing up the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
And so that mentality doesn't go anywhere. Mm-hmm. A lot of people like to say that was yesteryear. That mentality is still here. That's the human condition. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, that's case in point tyranny. America is supposed to be founded on you can protest, you can dissent, you have freedom of speech, you have freedom of ideology. But when you actually truly dissent and disagree and want to do your own thing or do something that's not given the stamp of approval by the American government, anything that is a threat to their system, they will come and destroy you without hesitation, without thinking twice. They will come and do that, and they've proven that on several occasions.
That's right. And so we're going to begin to end this podcast.
We got a caller in Zoom, though, actually.
Do we? Okay.
I believe so.
Get ready to bring it to an end. After
Tom, you're ready to speak with them?
Yeah, they're actually not here anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, so we good. Go ahead and finish out.
So we have sociopaths at the helm. That's what we got. I think we're going to do a podcast. If you want us to do a podcast on the revenge of the nerds, we're going to bring out every one of these tech billionaires and their nerd background, how they live in fantasy worlds, how they do fantasy things. I remember just being a young one, man. Star Wars was out, and I had my lightsaber. We doing our thing, but that's as far as it went. I didn't have on a Darth Vader helmet and a cape, and I was not walking around. I was not in cosplay mode. If I encountered a brother like that, I'd be like, yo, you are weird. Mm-hmm. All right, we're not going all out. You don't go all out. Get your lightsaber and use some cool things, and you're a cool one. You Han Solo or something, You not, I am Darth Vader. You just thinking on dark ones. You wanted to be the good guy. And you wasn't all out, but these guys in Lord of the Rings looking at the crystals and telling futures and putting on their hat and wearing the glasses. Isn't that Lord of the Rings with the little dude with the glasses? Or is that?
I don't know. I don't watch that stuff. I don't watch that stuff.
That was a trap
Right.
Yeah, I see the little round glasses, people walking around talking about they this, they that, all that stuff, man. It's literally for those people who are socially awkward, do not fit in any kind of society. Back in the day, when I mean back in the day, let's say a couple of 100 years ago, they would have, I've seen that in animal culture, right? If there is like this one cub that just don't fit into it, they ostracize them. And what that means is certain death. You have to go to the wilderness, man. You that weird looking one? You that weird looking one that likes to go over and play with the prey? They like, get him up out of here. And he goes in the wood and become prey. And so those socially awkward ones, that little runt that never could make it, could not pray, he's now for some reason became the king of the pride. And he's doing weird stuff. And like we said before, many other podcasts, is that this is why you see this weird stuff now passing off as law, as rules. And this is the norm right here. We don't want to get into the man-woman thing, but it's a lot of abnormalities out there that you now must take. These pronouns and whatnot. It takes a nerd to come up and say he's a her and they's a they or them. That's nerd talk. That's socially awkward talk. Again, that's those people, man. Again, you saw him squirming in that seat. Nothing about, imagine sitting next to it. Imagine sitting next to him trying to have a regular conversation. I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't do it. I want to know what he's popping. I want to know what he's throwing, what pharmaceuticals he's on. Crazy times, once again, ushering in a absolute tyrannical rule, and you will only know it when it fully develops in front of you, but then it's way too late.
Right. I think we got somebody else came in Zoom. I don't know if Hakam, you're able to talk to him or patch them in if they even want to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. I just hit him up, so got nothing back yet.
Okay.
But we still got a little bit of this article left. You want to continue on, or?
No, we're going to drop that, but make sure you help us reach 1,000 subscribers. We want to get to that point. Milestone right before us. We're starting this. We're a fledgling podcast just getting off, and we only do it once a week right now. We want to get it up. When we get our subscriber base up, we want to come a couple of times a week, hopefully, 4 to 5 times a week, talking about what's pressing. Right now, we come with things maybe a few days old, but something happened that day. We want to go in live right then and there. So many subjects out there. So we don't need to just talk about the headline news, maybe some of the nuances as well. Speaking of that, any subject that you want us to tackle, put it in the comments, and we'll definitely take it in consideration. And your comment may be next week podcast. We can't be everywhere all the time, but we would definitely like to know what our listeners are talking about. What are they into? So,
all right. About to have our guests unmute themselves. Will you come in and state your name? And go ahead.
All right, my brother.
What's going on?
What's on your
brother?
mind?
Nothing wrong, but it's so invasive, it's so intrusive. Well, our people don't see that.
Right. Yeah. Great point. I'm glad he brought that out. You're right.
Yeah.
People think that they're upstanding citizen until they deemed you a dissident. They may say watching the 9th Hour podcast is now illegal, or something you like. Something you like. Going to family reunions is now illegal because of whatever. But you're right. They're talking about I'm not doing anything. I have nothing to worry about. They're only putting those things out for criminals. Again, that's when the water is warm.
Yep.
Yeah.
The frogs in the pot scenario. Great point, brother Michael Jackson. Anything else?
Yeah, they like to hide behind their narratives and understanding that we are just, taking care of all criminals and all bad people. But like you said, the ball hits harder when you're playing dodgeball when it hits you in the face.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great analogy.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah, no, I agree. We talked about that in it may have been the last podcast about the surveillance state, how there was a woman who wasn't a criminal. She was an elderly lady.
Right.
And, she got, she was caught up in a traffic stop, I think at a checkpoint, and AI said her face matched the description of a perpetrator, of an actual criminal. She had no association with him. She was halfway across the country, and she got extradited from Oklahoma to Maryland and spent 6 months in jail and was released unceremoniously and just had to find her own way back home. And so we act like these things don't matter to us just because, I'm not a criminal. I'm not doing anything illegal. But that line between legality and illegal is so thin that so many people slip on that slope without even knowing that they're falling.
Absolutely.
No doubt. My last little line before I leave, we are so disconnected from the Most High. Oh, one shout out real quick. Messy Out of Face, y'all need to go get that book. It's off the chain. If y'all ain't read it, y'all should get a hold to it. I know it's a podcast about this, but that book is off the chain. Just letting y'all know that right now. So if you don't get it, go get it. Peace, my brother.
The plug, brother. Absolutely.
Appreciate you.
Brother bring up some beautiful points. We talked about Alex Karp is a noted white supremacist. Mm-hmm. And so imagine speaking against white supremacy and they now deem that illegal. And some may say, no, we have freedom of speech. But in the midst of freedom of speech, it's now illegal in certain countries like Canada to say that you don't think 6 million of certain people died in World War II. That's now called hate speech. To say that certain amount of people exceed their demographic in the what you got?
Germany actually just passed some stuff too about that. Certain symbols are supposed to be bad. One symbol that's supposed to be hate speech now?
What's that?
A watermelon. It's some sort of sign of something, some sort of antiseptic hate speech. You can't say from the river to the sea.
Yeah.
That's hate speech. And they passed that in Germany. I mean, recently, like yesterday or the day before, saying that's hate speech.
So if you can say that on the Federal Reserve is a certain amount of tiny hat people that does not fit with the demographic out there, they just exceedingly exorbitant in ownership of banks and what that is now deemed hate speech. Now, let's move over a little bit. What if white supremacists say that you can't, whatever. If you speak bad about the Confederate flag, that's deemed hate speech. And so like the brother Michael said a moment ago, is that's right on point. It's all good till it ain't. Yeah. And now you want to protest, but you it's ruled now. I mean, it is, the Supreme Court has now said that this is law. It is nothing you can do but revolt and riot. And at that point, they're ready for it. They're ready for you to riot. They got their drones out. They was already predicting you to riot. And they're going to quell that, and you're going to become a good servant. Tyranny will reign until it is put down. That's a whole nother podcast. Actually, that's not a podcast. That's our other platform, the House of Wisdom, where we talk about the prophecies that are going to come. These people will indeed take all the authority until all of the authority is taken from them. We started with that. Solomon spoke about that, is that tyranny will come, but tyranny will be turned into penury. It will be turned to nothing, but it will only be turned to nothing by the hands of the Most High. And I'm going to tell you, most tyranny started biblically. I'm going to say started, but there's a great example of tyranny. It was during the time of Egypt. That's what Solomon was talking about. He was talking about and reflecting on the children of Israel. They were subjugated to tyranny. What were they doing? They was working. It wasn't colonial slavery. It wasn't plantation, horses, and whips. It wasn't that. They had these people working in a system of classism. Those Hebrews were working class. They built things. And when they began to say things that wasn't conducive to the Egyptian Mizraim government, they was like, you need to work some more. I'm going to take away all the aid and help and support that we gave you. Yep. And then when you still talk, we're going to now do this and we're going to do that. And we're going to bring forth abortions because we heard through Palantir prognosticating that one by the name of Moses was going to come, and that was all what was going on. And in Revelations, it speaks about that latter government shall be called Sodom, or spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. and Palantirs fitting right into the tyranny. And did Moses free the people by getting together his military soldiers, his elite troops to fight against the Egyptian troops? No.
Absolutely not.
No, absolutely not. He did not. What happened? The strong hands of the Heavenly Father did it. Why? He wanted to show everybody that he mustered the host of the battle. He is stronger than all men. So he will let men like Nebuchadnezzar get proud and cocky and say that he is God and he's the ruler of everything, and bring him down on his knees where he's eating grass in the field to show there's nothing stronger than the Heavenly Father. And so at this time, I don't want to even pretend that we're talking about get ready to fight against the all-knowing. Didn't you say that crystal was like an eye or all-knowing or something like that?
I think that's what they said it means. It's supposed to be something that says to from afar and watch over. So watch over from afar.
Right. That fit right with the American narrative. That back of a dollar bill, the pyramid with the all-seeing eye and all of that. Coming right forward. So we're not saying pick up arms and fight. We're not even saying look at the Constitution and start a revolution. None of that will work. These people, again, are light years ahead of the populace. They've already thought about what they're going to do to suppress and quell any kind of insurrection whatsoever. It will take the hands of the Heavenly Father to come in and show his power to stop this government, these people, from doing what it is that they're doing. You got it. Those are my closing words. Any other words of wisdom?
No, I think that's it.
All right. So, again, join us for the podcast. Subscribe. Let a lot of notifications come through. That's the best way to get us until we start coming through on your airways every day. I'm hoping. So let us help us build this channel, build this platform. So I salute you all. May peace be multiplied.